I do not believe a word the Prime Minister says. I'm sorry, I don't, because when he was asked about this previously, he said in Parliament that under the vetting, he had been told about the ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I believe the reform vote will be the end of Starmer. We will be the thing that finishes this off, and he'll be gone by the middle of the summer. I'm absolutely convinced that he lied to the public by saying, yes, everything went through vetting, we were very happy with it.
Starmer is humiliated by Nigel Farage on live television in a way that left the entire country speechless. He stood up, looked straight into the camera, and dismantled the Prime Minister lie by lie until there was nothing left to defend. And what makes this even more brutal is that Starmer has absolutely no way to defend himself this time.
Is it not time to admit Smash the Gangs has been a total abject failure, along, frankly, with most of his other policies? Isn't it now time, he told us, as summer approaches, what is Plan B?
Nigel Farage was standing in Chesham mid-campaign, 7 stops planned for the day, and he looked straight into the camera and said something that I genuinely could not believe when I first heard it. He said, "I do not believe a word the Prime Minister says. I'm sorry, I don't. Not in a private meeting, not in a leaked WhatsApp, on live television, and honestly, I think that moment just broke something in British politics that is not going back together anytime soon."
Smash the gangs! That is what the Prime Minister promised us. Trust me, I will stop the boats from coming. But 70,000 later, and 1,000 in the last week, and too many young men that pose a threat to national security.
Because let me tell you something, this is not just Farage being his usual loud self. This is a man who has been out on the streets every single day, 7 stops in one day alone, while Starmer is sitting in Cobra meetings, hiding from questions in Westminster. And the reason Farage is this fired up, the reason I am this fired up talking about it, comes down to one name, Peter Mandelson.
He then said, outside of Parliament, that the whole procedure had been gone through and approved. Now, both of those statements cannot be right. And I do not believe that Ollie Robbins, who's one of the most senior civil servants in the country, would not have briefed the Prime Minister and briefed Number 10 about what the dangers were.
So let me walk you through what actually happened here, because when I looked into this properly, I was genuinely shocked. Peter Mandelson, the man Starmer personally handpicked to be Britain's ambassador in Washington, failed his security vetting. He failed it. And what did the Foreign Office do? They just overruled it and sent him anyway. Now, I think most of us would agree that alone is a jaw-dropping story. But then it gets so much worse, because buried inside that vetting process was a flagged connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, that Jeffrey Epstein. And Starmer stood up in Parliament and said the vetting process had flagged the ongoing relationship. Then he walked outside Parliament and told the British public that everything went through vetting, and they were very happy with it. Now, I am sorry, but both of those statements absolutely cannot be true at the same time. They just cannot. And Farage said, what I think millions of us were already thinking. What Starmer said outside Parliament was frankly lying to the public. I believe that. I really do.
Well, Ollie Robbins is the sacrificial lamb, and this is being done to try and save the Prime Minister. What they promised Ollie Robbins for the future, I don't know. But no, the whole thing stinks, and I'm sorry, but Starmer's been caught. And, you know, there he was telling us 2 years ago, a new kind of politics, a different kind of politics, and frankly, it looks even worse than it did before.
Now here is where it gets even more interesting and honestly a little bit sinister. When a scandal this big explodes, someone always has to take the fall, and that someone turned out to be Ollie Robbins, one of the most senior civil servants in this entire country. Gone. Just like that. And I have to say, when Farage called it immediately and said Ollie Robbins is the sacrificial lamb, I thought, yes, that is exactly what this looks like. Because we are not talking about some junior press officer here. We are talking about a man at the absolute top of the Foreign Office. Are we honestly supposed to sit here and believe that he never once briefed the Prime Minister about a national security concern this serious? I am sorry, but I do not buy that for a single second. And then Farage asked the question that I keep coming back to and nobody in government wants to touch. What have they promised Ollie Robbins for the future? That question matters, because if there is a backroom deal to keep this man quiet, then we are in genuinely dark territory.
But what I'm in no doubt about is what he said outside Parliament was frankly lying to the public.
And here's the part that I find personally infuriating. Starmer once stood up and said publicly, "Don't blame your staff." His actual words, his own mouth, and now his chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, is gone. Ollie Robbins is gone. The ex-National Cybersecurity Center chief is openly telling anyone who will listen that Robbins was sacked without basis and treated unfairly. I mean, come on. This is not one mistake. This is not one bad day. This is a deliberate pattern of one man throwing everyone around him under the bus to save his own skin. And I think we all see it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is from the man and the party that voted against giving law enforcement counter-terrorism-style powers to tackle it.
But here is the part that I think should genuinely make Starmer lose sleep at night. Both Reform and the Liberal Democrats are now demanding the Privileges Committee investigate the Prime Minister. And if you do not know what the Privileges Committee is, let me remind you. That is the exact same mechanism that finished Boris Johnson over Partygate. The same weapon, being pointed at a Prime Minister again. For the same reason, lying to Parliament. Ed Davey said it himself. Boris Johnson was held to account rightly because they lied, and we need to use the Privileges Committee now. When two opposition parties are this aligned on something this serious, I think we have to sit up and pay attention.
If the Prime Minister comes on Monday and says, what I told you before is a load of nonsense, then it's akin to an admission that he misled Parliament. Now the question is, did he willfully mislead Parliament?
And Starmer has now been forced to make a statement to the Commons. He has to stand up and either defend what he said before or contradict it. And Farage already told us exactly what that means. If he walks anything back on Monday, that is, in his own words, akin to an admission that he misled Parliament. There is no good answer here. There is no version of Monday where Starmer walks out looking clean. The ethics advisor has received a formal letter. The Privileges Committee is being loaded. Every single exit is blocked. We all came into this thinking Starmer was the antidote, the clean hands politician, the man who was going to be different after years of conservative chaos and sleaze. That was his entire pitch to the British people. And now I look at where we are, a failed vetting overruled, a senior civil servant fired, a Jeffrey Epstein connection sitting in government paperwork, and a prime minister who cannot keep his own story straight from one side of Parliament to the other. The man who promised to clean the swamp is standing neck deep in it. And I genuinely do not know how he survives this. And Farage? He is 7 stops into his day. He is just getting started.
Well, look, the more money we put into the NHS, and you look at the massive increase in percentage GDP put into health over the last 10, 15 years, and you see there are even fewer beds. So I think it does need a much more business-like approach to how money is spent, how the whole thing's organised.
Now, while all of this is exploding inside Parliament, let me tell you what Farage was actually doing that same morning. He was in Chesham. 7 campaign stops planned. First one before most people had even finished their breakfast. And I think that contrast alone tells you everything you need to know about where British politics is right now. One man is hiding in a Cobra meeting, away from cameras, away from questions, away from accountability. The other man is on the streets shaking hands and telling anyone who will listen that Starmer's days are numbered. And honestly, I know which one looks more like a leader right now.
He completely ignored me. He started ranting and raving about reform councils across the country and in disgust and against parliamentary convention. And I hope you're not ashamed of me.
And Farage did not just hint at it either. He said it with this ice-cold confidence that I found genuinely chilling. He looked into the camera and said the reform vote will be the end of Starmer, we will be the thing that finishes this off, and he will be gone by the middle of summer. Not maybe, not possibly. Gone by summer. And when someone says something that bold, that clearly, I think you have to stop and ask yourself, does he actually know something we do not? Because Farage does not usually make predictions like that unless he feels the ground shifting under his feet.
But I sense that the Labour Party will tack to the left because they're worried about the Green vote in the inner cities. That's my sense of where this will go. Who's the bookies' favourite? Probably Angela Rayner, but we'll see.
And then someone asked him the obvious next question. If Starmer goes, who replaces him? And Farage pointed to Angela Rayner. But then he said something I thought was really interesting. He warned that Labour will tack hard to the left because they are panicking about losing the Green vote in inner cities. So not only is he predicting Starmer falls, he is already telling us what the wreckage looks like afterwards. Reform is not playing defense anymore. They are not just the opposition. They are the ones holding the blade, and May the 7th local elections are the moment they use it. Cast your mind back to the promise, smash the gangs. Those were his words. That was his big pledge to the British people. Stop the boats, end the crossings. And where are we now? 70,000 crossings. 70,000. And 1,000 of those happened in a single week. 1 week. And when he got challenged on this live on television, he hid behind the Energy Secretary. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom hid behind the Energy Secretary rather than answer a straight question. I mean, I genuinely do not know whether to laugh or cry at that. And then, as if all of that was not enough, Iran fired 2 ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, a British naval base, a base we share with the United States. 1 missile landed, 1 was shot down. And here is the detail that made my stomach drop when I read it. London is now within range. Kama has warned Britain directly. And what was Starmer's response to all of this? De-escalation. That was it. Just de-escalation. And someone put it in a way that I thought was devastatingly accurate. They said it would take this government 3 to 5 days just to make a decision if a long-range missile was fired toward us because he would be checking international law first. That is the man in charge of our national security right now. Farage says Starmer has to go before the May elections, and Ed Davey agrees. This is cross-party consensus now. A prime minister who lies to parliament cannot stop 70,000 crossings and is paralyzed while missiles land on British soil is not just a bad politician. He is a national security risk. Drop your answer in the comments and subscribe because this story is moving fast.